What is override? Well, in object-oriented programming, when you have a subclass, it inherits the methods and properties of a superclass. And if in that subclass you define a same method or property as what's available in the superclass, then that's called an override. You're saying, hey, I don't want to use the old one. I want to override that with a different version of that method or property, usually methods. So there is also an issue where if you ever need to, if you do the override, you ever need to access the original superclass's method or property, then you should be provided with a way to do that as well. And so we're going to show you both now. Cledunk. So we have this ball, and the ball has a, here we're going to center it on the stage, so let's take a look and remind ourselves as to what this looked like. Open it up in a browser. There's a ball. Please ignore the what is on there. Override. This time we're going to override it, and instead of centering the ball right in the center when we call center, we're going to make a new center method. And that new center method will center the highlight on the stage. So rather than the whole ball, it's going to center the highlight. Imagine that we want that. I don't particularly care, but that will demonstrate the override. So when we say ball.center on stage, right now we don't see a center in the ball. So here's the class of ball. We've got a bounce method. We've got a highlight property that's a set and get method, and then that's it. So center came because we extended the ball. So if you haven't seen the what is extend, then take a look at that. We've extended the ball, or sorry, we've extended the circle to make the ball. Okay, so the circle is what had the center method on it. So there's a couple nuances here. There's two ways that we can create a method. We can create the method right in here like so. There, that's a method. Or we can create a method on the, and we'll do that here, a method on the prototype. So that would look like ball dot prototype dot center is equal to a function, like so. Now, if we're going to be overriding the center, then note that the center receives a parameter here. So it actually can receive more than one, so we'd have to, properly do that. But at the moment, we'll just make it receive one, and that is the container that we're centering it in. Okay. Now, we had mentioned before that the Zim extend will provide a super underscore constructor or a super underscore access to the superclasses methods. So if we come on down here, if we wanted to, from here, we don't want to reset, like we don't want to redo the centering of this. The centering is actually pretty tricky. It's a couple dozen lines of code at least, and it's hard. It's dealing with containers and local to global and all this kind of stuff. So we don't want to redo the centering. We just want to call the original center and then shift it. So how do we call the original center? Well, it would be nice if we could say this dot super underscore center. And so we're going to call that and pass it the container. And what that should do is it should just run the original center on it. So whenever we call our new center here, it will call the original center and center the container for us, and then we can shift it. This dot x, let's see, we will move it back minus equals 50. I think that's roughly when we centered this at the light. You see that we've added 50 to So we'll bring all of this, the whole ball, back 50. And that should center the ball in the X. And then similarly for the Y, like that, we can add 50 to it. And so now we've centered the ball, but now we're shifting the ball. All right. So that's called an override. We've just overridden the original center. We've been able to access it with the super, but like I said, there's some nuances here. This will work, and then we want to describe, this isn't normally how I would make a method, so I want to show you how I would normally make a method, and then we're going to run into a bit of a problem here. But for now, here we have the override on the prototype, and we save that, and let's refresh here. So watch carefully this ball, and when we refresh, yeah, indeed, that ball is now shifted over to the left. Perhaps so that you can believe this, we'll move it over 150 and come in here and refresh. Sure enough, it's moved over 150. Okay, so it does appear that the override worked. When we centered the ball here, it ended up calling this center function, which called the original center function, passed in the container, and then adjusted it. All right, so that's great. Now, as it turns out, if you put your methods on the prototype, it then takes a look and it says, all right, I've got a method on a prototype. Was that the same as a previous prototype method? All right, and so it looks through all of the previous prototypes and it will find a center because center was added to the circles prototype. So it finds a center and it knows, oh, wait a minute, we already had a center on the circle. Therefore, I will create a super underscore center available for you. So it will, by default, anything that you add to the prototype that matches something that was already existing, it will add a super underscore for you, including, well, it actually always adds a super underscore constructor. However, the same is not true if we were to take this function, and here's where I normally make my methods inside like that, and I just say this dot center. So now we've got this dot center defined inside our class, not on the prototype. And in that case, extend will not redo the center. So if we save and refresh this, it breaks and it says, this dot super underscore center is not a function. Boo. So we moved it inside, and now for some reason it doesn't know what this underscore or super underscore center is. Well, that's because the automatic way, it automatically works based on if the prototype is the same as something else. If it's something in the prototype is the same as something else. It doesn't work if a method assigned inside the class. So we have to tell it that. So we just inside of here we say, please note that we're wanting to gain access to the center method of the superclass. So we're going to be overriding center, and could you please make me a super underscore center? And you can pass in an array of things here as well. So if you had multiple things that you needed to access, then you can pass in an array. And if we're only doing one, then we can just say, hey, please note that I want access to super underscore center there. So we save that, and when we refresh here, refresh, we're back to the ball working again. So that is overriding, and one of the nuances of the extend. I think that's a good nuance, though. You don't want to automatically be providing all of these super underscores on everything if you don't really need it. So the way we've adjusted is we've said, hey, if you've made a prototype we're going to check to see if that's overriding something, and we'll automatically give you a super underscore. If you don't, then you have to tell us which ones you are wanting to gain access, and that way it doesn't go off and make all these things if you're not really going to need them. All right, so that's overriding, where now we have a different version of a center function or method. Isn't that cool? So that comes in handy occasionally. You know, I hardly ever override, but once out of every 10 projects, once out of every 20 projects, I might. It's one of these fun things to do in object-oriented programming. I'm inventor Dan Zen here at zimjs.com. Have a great day.